Here we go, Neighborhood Watch. We're here. I'm Michael. What are you? You're Cameron.
Yes.
Well, look at that. This is episode 1261. This was Disco, Snuffy, and Big Bird. This one, you might have noticed, we're going out of order. The whole order has gone to shit. This one is before the previous episode. Doesn't matter anymore. We're just checking them off the big list. I don't care about order anymore. This one started off quite odd, Cameron. I think it must have been even more of a shock to you, having been so long since you've watched an actual episode.
Yeah, I found a lot of changes in this week's episode. You know, no more clay people at the beginning. There's no more scary clay people to traumatize the children. I was happy to see that.
I'm excited to hear your new perspective, because I've seen like a dozen episodes almost at this point. But I think as there becomes more of a divide between me and the guest, as I become sort of like the beaten down expert, I'm glad we have new people to give us some new perspective. So this one started off with something absolutely bizarre. It was Snuffleupagus and Big Bird in Big Bird's nest, his little like nook that we've seen. He has an actual nest that we see in this episode, so that's being established further. But they're listening to a sort of disco rendition of Rubber Ducky. Is where we're starting off, and Big Bird explains to Snuffleupagus what a disco is.
And a disco is very disco-like, according to Big Bird. Not much more detail other than that, only that a disco is very much like the disco.
We've been noting that as these episodes go on, they're more and more of their time. Like, I feel like the first 2 or 3 were kind of timeless, but up in these like 1,000 plus episodes are very, they're very 70s and 80s. So they use their imagination, as they've done in episodes past, to conjure up a disco club, a discotheque, if you will, and we get to see some of their moves. Like there's a couple that's dancing on the dance floor, and they remark on their dance skills, which I was not a fan of, to be honest.
Michael, how did you describe Big Bird and Snuffleupagus, their dancing? What was it like? What was it akin to?
I said if you were to remove the soundtrack, it would seem as if there was just an earthquake on set. Because it was like I'll give a pass to Snuffleupagus because he's clearly 2 people in a giant suit, just doing a dance, like stepping back and forth. But I need to emphasize how surreal it was, because I've gotten accustomed to like there's an ongoing like plot in an episode. This episode, well, it did have that, but it didn't start off with that like it normally does. It was just this weird sort of discos are hot. Maybe we should incorporate, because that's really the feeling that I got.
I think it would be important to note Mr. Snuffle's hat, because that was a beautiful hat.
He just had a hat for no reason. Well, not for no reason. It was clearly that's his going out outfit. But they don't remark on it because it's a giant hat for Snuffleupagus's giant head. I was fond of that. But yeah, they just kind of dance and they play some like disco music. It's bizarre. And it doesn't return. Like, it's never mentioned again. It's not the theme of the episode or anything. Then we move on to that 2 of our sponsors get introduced immediately. 11 and I. So there's this animation of a guy who says he's on take 11 of like trying to introduce the letter I. Not much to say about this one. This was just like setting up the sponsor of the episode, I think.
I was a little confused at one point. They were counting to up to 12, though, which I didn't get it. Well, what's with that?
You're referencing the pinball number count, which has been a repeated segment and one of my all-time favorites. That one's always to 12. Like they pick out a number, they'll do 11, but like the song, like the bookend to the song is the full 12. I don't really know what the story for that is. It's like I guess they get the full use out of it.
I guess
like,
so, yeah.
Yeah, like the middle section is always different in terms of the song and the animation. Like it's always like in a different style musically, and then they'll give it like a different theme for the animation.
Okay, alright, that makes sense. Because I just thought maybe 12 was another one of our sponsors.
But yeah, I'll give a pass for pinball number count because it's so awesome. But yeah, then we move on to Grover's Eye Song. I think this is the first time we see Grover singing. This one is weirdly edited too. He's sort of like bouncing. Well, not bounce. He's like cutting in and out, and like he's one moment he'll be like right next to an eye, and like one moment he'll be like far away. We don't see that much with like editing cut into the puppet segments. Here's something of note. The plants and the musical noise is what I've written for this next segment, which was just that. There was this like plant, this like big like tree-sized sort of bush with flowers on it, and the camera's like zooming in on it, and there's just like different like percussive instrument noises going on, like no clear melody attached. It was very bizarre.
Now this I do remember.
Yeah.
Because it scared me a little bit. There were like police sirens going on in the background. Did you notice
aggressive.
that? Yeah, it was. I thought something was going down with this tree.
But there was no like payoff either. No one to introduce what was going on. It was just it was what it was. It was just an audio visual experience. Yeah. So then we had the pinball number count. Then we jumped to the hand counting to 11. Anyone with even a passing knowledge of hand anatomy can see what the problem was going to be with this scene. So a voice is explaining to us while there's two hands on screen with like colored gloves on that they're gonna count to 11. So they start doing the fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They do it the weird way. They do it like pinky starting first. I've never been a fan. How do you count, Cameron?
1, I use my index finger, and then 2 is my middle finger.
All right.
3, and so on and so forth. It goes
hang on,
to the left, and then
the 3 is the important. 3 is the important one because you can either do the thumb or you can do like the 3 middle ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do the 3 middle ones. That's how I do my 3s.
That is, I agree with you. That is the more comfortable of my ways. Because like 4 after that, like it doesn't make sense. Like you got to do like this like pinky like grab thing.
Yeah, because your pinky's all funky if you're trying to keep it down but have all the other fingers up. It's like half up.
Right. It doesn't make sense. I don't know whoever thought of doing it that way. Yeah, I have family members that do it that way, and it's bizarre. But yeah, they get to 10. They can't do more. No one is afflicted with polydactyly, which is the affliction of having extra fingers. I learned that I did like a health project, like a biology project on like a genetic disorder thing on a mutation. I had polydactyly.
I didn't know that. I did not know that polydactyly was extra fingers.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
Because you got poly, which is Latin for many.
Many, yeah.
Or numerous, and then dactyl, which is Latin for like finger or like extremity or sort of thing.
Does that make a pterodactyl like a flying finger?
That they do have like those weird like sort of like bat-like sort of like wings. Like it's not like, or I guess like dinosaurs. Have scientists decided if we're sticking with the feathered dinosaur theory?
Wait, dinosaurs were feathered?
You're unaware of this?
I thought they were all scaly and reptilian.
There's been a recent resurgence of theories that dinosaurs may have actually been more avian in their appearance because they were covered in feathers and not entirely reptilian as we've seen them in movies.
That would just look stupid.
I know, it's
like a bunch of giant chickens.
Yeah. I'm really afraid that that's what it was. Like I don't want Jurassic Park to be retroactively, incorrect. That's
I don't want to
they've
see like Big Bird walking around in Jurassic Park. I don't want to see that.
Tyrannosaurus Bird. God, that would have been a different movie.
Early Big Bird was scary enough to pull off that horror aspect of the film.
Can you imagine if like Jurassic Park was like Muppetified? If they did like a Muppet, like they've done that before. They've taken other stories. How long until Jurassic Park becomes public domain and they can like Muppetify it?
I give it a couple years. I hope. I want to see that episode.
Okay, so after that we had the Chinatown, which is just Big Bird and one of the human friends who I don't think we've met, some guy. They were walking through Chinatown, and Big Bird is explaining to the guy that he's afraid of the dragons, that inhabit Chinatown. But this is where we run into an issue. He explains to them that they're just puppets. So the Big Bird's not to break the element of illusion here, but Big Bird is also a puppet. So the moment that things like make a turn and that a dragon pops up and scares the guy and he jumps into the giant puppet's arms for protection, there's a little bit of fun little irony to add there, I feel as if. Also weird that there's a Chinatown segment. I feel like we've been pushing the Chinese New Year theme, and look at this. Maybe I'm clairvoyant. Maybe there's going to be a dinosaur segment in the next episode.
Yeah.
If we're to be following the theme here. After that, we had the return of the typewriter, who I did not know was a returning character or like a animation series. But yeah, he's done other letters for us. Cameron, this is probably your first introduction to him.
Yes, I have not seen Mr. Typewriter before.
Yeah, so this one, he did the letter I, and he used the word ink because he needed ink in order to print the word ink on his paper.
Have you ever used a typewriter, Michael?
You know what? My great-grandpa, who lives far away, we visited him like once, and he had a typewriter in his basement. And I remember like there was all this cool stuff in his basement, like old-timey there's this like swing set like in there, like just a rope in there. It's a very vivid memory. But there was also like a letter writing table, one of those things with like the little like drawing up sort of drawer sliding thing. You ever seen one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah, those things are awesome. And there was a typewriter there too. And I remember typing stuff out on the typewriter and it was awesome. They feel great.
Do they?
I love it. Yeah.
That's
You've
nice.
never...
No, I've never used a typewriter. I've always imagined like the feedback from hitting the keys was like, I imagined it to be calming and comfortable.
It's like difficult, like for my little like 6-year-old fingers. Like I couldn't keep the home row steady. But it made it all the more satisfying, I believe.
Yeah, I hope that one day I get to use one of those.
Yeah.
That's on my bucket list now.
It's a good thing to do. After that, we had the bus counting video, which was just a bunch of like B-roll of buses driving by as kids sort of like haphazardly shout out numbers. There's a lot of this, of just, especially in this episode, there was a lot of sort of like half-committed kids yelling things simultaneously.
Just a bunch of kids trying to have a good time.
Yeah. Then we had the impolite sketch. This one had quite an ending to it. He was explaining to us, he was standing next to a letter I, as cartoon characters are wont to do, explaining to us that something that's impolite, as a voice coming from nowhere in particular, is kind of patronizing him. Kind of like tell us what it's about, you dumbo. That's not what he said. That was me interpreting. But it ends with him going off screen. He's like, excuse me for a moment. And then he like walks off screen, and then we hear him doing what can only be assumed, beating up this guy who's yelling at him. and then coming back and being like, impolite, which is a troubling lesson to just solve with physical violence. I am personally a pacifist. I will not allow this sort of lesson to be taught to our young children.
Yeah, and one other thing to know I've been hat guy this episode so far, but this guy's hat just looked like boobs to me. I just had to say that, yeah. Had to point that out.
It's unavoidable, frankly. It's, when you're cartoonizing a sort of 10-gallon hat from the right angle, from the right line, density, you're gonna end up anatomy-ish. Ernie and Bert. I've seen this scene before, but I was fond of it the first time, and it holds up the second time. Do you want to give the rundown of what happens in this scene, since it was your first encounter?
Yeah, sure. I'm surprised that they reuse skits like this. Is that
it's becoming more rare? I think just because this episode is so close to two other episodes that I've watched. We're not making a 100 episode jump anymore.
Yeah.
So that's probably the reason why. But there was still mostly original stuff in this.
Okay, well, it begins with Ernie. Bert's the orange one, right? I can't remember for the life of me. This is my second episode, okay?
Bert is the cranky one with the long head.
Bert's yellow, Ernie's orange. Yes?
I believe so.
Okay.
I don't identify by... I don't see color.
You don't see color? Okay.
No.
Okay, so Ernie wakes up in, and I quote, the middle of the night, and wants to know what time it is. So he wakes Bert up, and of course Bert's, oh, come on, Ernie, what are you doing? And, well, the issue with looking at the clock, which Bert tells Ernie to do, is that it's too dark to see the clock. And so Bert decides to inform Ernie that he should just turn on the light switch. But to Bert's dismay, Ernie's like, you know what, I can't see the light switch either, it's too dark. And so to solve this issue, because, he's not going to give up without knowing what time it is, he decides to go out the window, not jumping out, he shouts out the window, and all the angry New Yorker neighbors decide to yell at him. Hey, shut up, man, come on, what are you doing? I mean, it wasn't that aggressive, but it's a child show. But one of them, as one might have assumed, says, hey, man, it's 3 o'clock in the morning! And so Ernie finally gets his answer, and he goes off to bed. And that's the end of our little Muppet skit, and that was a fun one.
Yeah, I liked it too. I remember, because I didn't see it having that conclusion. I anticipated something it came out of nowhere for me, to be honest. I thought, that's one skill that the Ernie and Bert scenes seem to have, is that their solution is often something I can't anticipate.
Yeah, there's always a nice little twist.
Yeah, and that's always appreciated for someone like me. After that, we had probably the most displeasing scene that I've ever seen. What was this? There was a dentist scene. They showed kids at the dentist and teeth cleaning and the pick and I can't stand teeth. Why? Who was this for?
For the dentists who watch the show?
Why do they need... That's not what they want. I bet even dentists hate teeth. I'm willing to bet that, a solid 40% of dentists hate teeth. And then another, 50% are, neutral. There's, that weird... You gotta account for, the 10% weirdo population in anything that you're counting. But no one... I hate teeth. This is gross. I had to look away. I didn't have to, but I wanted to. It was where does Sesame Street get off? Fucking gross. Just gross. Teeth are gross. Then we had the look-alike scene, which was just two little animation guys singing a look-alike song. Song was fine. I thought, whatever. Um, he like falls off a cliff at one point.
Yeah, this was another forgettable music scene.
Yes.
Nothing special.
Yeah, we'll get to the good music. Um, then we had. Oh, I enjoyed this one. I imagine. So it was here now presenting the octopus is what I titled this because that's all that's spoken during this, just right at the beginning, and then a low fidelity recording of Pomp and Circumstance plays during different movie images of octopi.
Yeah, this one was a little gross to me. I don't know what it is about octopi, but seeing all those suckers and it's all fleshy and gross looking. I wouldn't touch an octopus.
But you're fine with kids' mouths?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that.
Their gross like tongues like sticking out and like poking at like the little scraper.
But they had like clean white teeth. I mean, if it was like gingivitis and they're like bleeding at the mouth, I mean, I might have been a little more grossed out. But it was like happy, healthy little kids. The dentist.
It was this is your mouth on drugs, but it was, even the best of mouths are still just these holes to your insides. Then we have the introduction of our continuing scene, which was Mr. Hooper and Olivia are in Mr. Hooper's shop, and along with a Muppet, Harry is his name. He's like the big blue Muppet. It's kind of got like the gravelly voice and the big nose. You can remember him because he's kind of hairy. But he wants to know what's cooking. And first of all, Mr. Hooper lets loose what sounds like some sort of like idiom, like common saying thing. Do you remember what he said? Something about peas being in a pot.
Yeah, he said a lot in a very short amount of time. And it was like, whoa, it caught me off guard.
It had like the rhythm and tone of like an old like country wisdom sort of saying that like your grandpa would say when he's like trying to give you advice. I don't know, it was something like peas in the pot with the hot warm water is nothing till after 3. Or something to that effect. I hope I don't sound like some moron that doesn't recognize this like super common phrase. But I had no idea what he was talking about because it was clearly like a joke. Because Olivia responds with like, "Oh, you're such a goofball. You're such a silly guy." But like we were left out in the cold. I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah, me neither.
Because there were no peas. What he did have for sale was a special for the day that was written on a chalkboard like you'd see in like a fancy cafe or just a regular cafe. Blackboards are not exclusive or special like that. The sign was like not far away, like it was readable. It said like chicken salad platter as the special, but Harry is like, "Can you bring it closer? Can you bring it closer?" And like Olivia brings it up and bring it closer until it's like right up in his face, and he's like, "I think this says." So clearly, what they're setting up here is an eyesight related story to sort of ease the troubles of children that might be struggling to see like the chalkboard in class, and they've cleverly painted it just different enough so that it's not like a direct thing, but kids can still relate to it.
I think it's coincidental that the last episode I was on had a big scene with some magic glasses.
Oh my god, I forgot. I didn't even put this together. Could those be... Because... Okay, so there was a pair of... Well, we'll get to it. Harry goes to the optometrist, and there's a scene there with a bizarre pair of spectacles. That's really weird. But yeah, he's kind of afraid of going to the doctor. He doesn't, because he thinks it'll hurt or something. But the adults are, convincing him, "Oh, it's fine, I'll come with you." So that's where that scene leaves off. Then we go to one of my favorites, actually. I really enjoyed this animation style. It's the circles with like the stringy sort of animation style that like morphs into different things. I don't know how you felt about this. I was really struck by it. I want to go back and find it after we're done here. It just sort of had this like bizarre like guitar riff going on in the background, like just eerie enough, but still sort of cheerful sounding.
Yeah. It was like an artistic piece of work. It's hard to describe it. I mean, it was like spaghetti, like stringy spaghetti that could turn into beautiful images.
Right. Most of these things, like I don't really feel the need to comment on too seriously because they're mostly throwaway. But this one in particular, for some reason, caught my eye. I think it was well done. And then we went to the the train blocks, which was there was like a little like thing of blocks that was set out to look like a train, and then right next to it is a bunch of scattered little paper shapes, and mixed in with these shapes are the shapes that will correctly be able to like make a copy of this block's train. And so this hand is led by a chorus of children shouting out, "No, not that one! Grab the square one! No, grab the bigger one!" And they go through every permutation of wrong shape for every possible combination. It's like a 3.5-minute scene, far too long.
Was I noted that there was one particular saying that the kids kept repeating was "little square." I think that was my favorite. There was a little square that they had to put up at the top of the train to make one of like the smokestacks.
Yeah. The only saving grace of this scene was that the payoff was pretty good because it went on to like this, because you were so accustomed to like this very plodding, very just sort of realistic sort of grabbing the shapes and making a thing, and like he'll like bump the shape and the kids will be like, "Fix it! No, you gotta fix it!" And he goes and fixes it. But then when he completes it, like the block train sort of like bursts apart into like the stop motion like animation kind of thing, and that was kind of cool. It's funny how like they could set up your expectations like that, and then give you something that otherwise would be like pretty not noteworthy, but then in that context, I enjoyed it. So good job, Sesame Street. You manipulated me into thinking you're good. Nah, you're fine. Then we had the capital I explanation, which pretty straightforward, pretty like school lesson-y. Here's what a capital I is used for and what it looks like. State names and identifying the self, etc. Then we had the carrying stuff thing. This was weird. The themes that they managed to pick out for these not animations of like clip collections continues to surprise. This one was just people carrying different things. They did a good job of like getting a bunch of different cultures represented. We had like a bunch of people carrying stuff on their heads, like different ways that people carry their baby, whether it's like in their arms or they have like a little like pouch thing on their front or their back, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I would like switch between clips of like people carrying things in Africa, and then switching back to people carrying things in America.
Then we had probably the longest part, which was Harry.
Real quick, Michael, before we get to this, you totally skipped over my favorite part.
Oh, shit.
Do you not remember the shape game at the Fix-It store?
Oh my god, the shape game.
That was my favorite part. It's like they took some guy off the street and he had no idea what he was doing. They were like, "Hey, look at this and find some shapes." And this guy's like, "Oh, that's a line. Look." And then there's a longer line, and boom, you have a triangle. And I was laughing the entire skit. I thought that was the best part of the entire show. And it was like a square, and then a circle, and then a couple of rectangles. It was simple, but it was funny to me.
It was very simple. A little too simple for me, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Because it was really, it was like they're taking like the sort of like overlay sketching effect like you'd see on like a football like sketching out a play, yeah. They're using that little tool thing to like sketch out shapes. Yeah, I apologize. I can't believe I missed over this crucial skit.
Okay, we can move on to the eye doctor trip now.
Finally, the optometrist. What I've been waiting for. This was like a 5-minute to do, which is long in Sesame Street terms. He goes through the whole Harry, the Muppet, goes through the whole rigmarole of an eye doctor checkup. You know, he's like he looks at the sign on the wall, which is shapes instead of letters, because I guess we're meant to believe the Muppet's like, or at least this Muppet is like a kid, and he can't read yet. So it's just like pictures of houses and umbrellas and apples instead of the usual letters. But he goes through the whole like, first we're gonna like check out your eyes. So the doctor like takes like a little light and shines it in his like fake Muppet eyes, completely serious, like totally playing along. Which, you know, kudos to that actor, because it all seemed to be in one take.
The doctor managed to forget his lines a time or two though, where he had to kind of improv something.
Right, he did not have lines, is what I'm led to believe.
Yeah.
He was told just, they actually found an optometrist and said, hey, we need you to like do an actual appointment on this Muppet and just pretend he's real, because he's shining his light into like little plastic buttons and be like, oh yeah, that's good, I can see like the backs of your eyes, it's perfect.
I think the best part of that was when he had to kind of strap his face to that machine to check the curvature of his eyes.
Yeah.
So this whole Harry's face is like in this contraption, and the doctor, of course, is dead serious the whole time. Wow, that was great.
Because he doesn't have a human shaped face. Like, he doesn't like fit right. He's got this huge like nose. It's pretty great. So yeah, he goes through the whole thing. Like, he does the whole lenses thing, like, you know, flipping through the different ones. And then he finally gets like the pair of like test glasses that I mentioned earlier that look they look bizarre on him. I enjoyed that image a lot, of like these like sort of like prototype glasses on this Muppet, and we're meant to like, I was caught up in it. I believed. I don't know about you, but my suspension of disbelief reached the critical mass at that point. I believed that he could see those signs. I was happy.
Yeah, it was a touching moment for us.
I was overjoyed. I wish this was canonical, because I feel like they're not going to stick with Harry having glasses in every episode. Like, I feel like, because he definitely sticks around. We've seen him. I feel like I've seen him in further episodes, and I don't think he's wearing glasses, which is a shame, because Sesame Street would be a lot more fun if they had a more strict commitment to their lore, as I've said in the past. But, you know, what are you going to do? It's for kids. But also for me. So, F-, Sesame Street, goodbye. Okay, same versus different was this next sketch. It sort of had like this like slot machine effect with like 2 columns of things, and then a bunch of kids would shout out whether the things were different or the same. This one was fun purely for the fact that the responding kids were getting a little too eager. They thought they had it figured out. They thought they had the pattern down, but they did not. So you'd get like the 1 or 2 kids who think they've outsmarted the system, shouting out before the thing has even ended that it's the same, and then it like ticks over to one last change, and then everyone's like, no, it's different. Dumb kids. I don't know about you. Were you one of those kids in school? Were you like shouting out the answer before they even finished the question?
Oh no, definitely not. I was a quiet kid.
Okay.
I did not like talking to people very much.
Then we had the question of the day with Ernie and Cookie Monster. This one was fun because Muppets make everything more fun, because it was basically like the same idea. It was the same theme as the previous one, because the question of the day was, who is Ernie and who is Cookie Monster, which seemed apparent to any viewers at home. I would imagine, you know, but this question seemed to stump Ernie and Cookie Monster, because they are the same height, They thought they would be able to differentiate because, Ernie's short, but wait, Cookie Monster's short too. They have wiggly fingers the same. They have tiny eyes that are the same. So they devolve into what seems to be some sort of existential crisis because they ask themselves whether he is the other, which is very deep for Sesame Street, I felt.
Yeah, I agree.
But then we had some strange Muppet I've never seen before. Just some green guy run up and say, like, well, wait a second. You're blue, and you're, like, a human. What is Ernie? Like, where does Ernie get off, like, being, like, a human Muppet? Like, he's the most human of the Muppets. Maybe like, next to Guy Smiley. He and Bert I kind of occupy this, like, middle, like, ground, this sort of Muppet human limbo.
Like, they've reached the next stage of the Muppet evolution before you reach human.
Right.
Like, there's Muppet, and then you've got Ernie, and then you have human. And so he represents that middle ground, that next step in the Muppet evolution.
So hang on. So if we trace this back, do you think that Big Bird could be the missing genetic link between humans and dinosaurs?
I think that's the only logical explanation.
Because if there's a clear track, we can see that, like, Harry seems to be like a more human version of Cookie Monster. He's like this big blue thing, but he's a little more human. Like, his eyes are, like, in his head as opposed to on his head, and he's got, like, a nose. More human than Cookie Monster. So we need to, like, build out a chart, like a flow chart from Big Bird to humans, and I think you would have, like, the sum total of evolution. I think this is our key to solving the evolution problem.
You're right.
Then we have to ask the question, if humans evolved from Muppets, why are there still Muppets? Then we had the capital I song. This one was fun. This was the best song of the episode.
Oh yeah, super catchy.
Yeah, because every once in a while Sesame Street will pull out this, like, complex composition of, like, of some bizarre concept, and this was our little gem of the episode, because they were singing about how they live in an eye in the sky, and they get out of it and they worship it and they scrub it and it gives them light. I enjoyed the theming of the episode, even though it was just, like, a bunch of little guys like brushing a giant eye and then going inside. It had that surrealist Sesame Street that I like. Then we went on to a more practical application, which was a kid with the deaf woman of Sesame Street, who I don't think we've heard her name, but she's made other appearances, and she's teaching sign language to the kid. She's teaching him how to say wet paint in sign language, which is, if you can see it right now, I'm doing it. It's sort of like a finger, like, clasping, like you're grabbing onto something for wet, and then paint is like you're brushing something on your hand. So that would be wet paint. I'm doing it right now. Yeah. So that was nice. That was a pleasant little scene. Because the kid was cooperative and, not one of those, like, jump the gun losers that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, he's a fun little fella.
Fun little tyke. Billy Joe Jive. The return of Billy Joe Jive and the case of the stolen strawberries. Like that? I just came up with that. We don't know what to think of Billy Joe Jive. At least I don't, and I think it was Russ that was with me when we discussed the previous one. What did you think of Billy Joe Jive?
I thought he was cool.
Yeah?
He's a cool guy. And he's got, what's the name of the girl that he's with?
Susie Sunshine.
Susie Sunshine. My favorite part of that was watching them walk away at the end down the sidewalk, and their strut that they have. I thought that was, I wish I could, like, walk around like that all the time with that confidence. I was really envious.
Well, I'm glad you were able to empathize with their confidence, because I really took issue with their law enforcement practices. I've got to say, because they're going off. First of all, their primary lead is a single eyewitness account, whose testimonial is, let's say, shaky at best, because he reports that he saw maybe a big kid or maybe a small weird kid. That's a quote. That's a direct quote. And that's the lead that Billy Joe Jive and his partner Susie Sunshine go on. And immediately the first big kid that they run into, they tackle him to the ground and ruin his chocolate cream pie. Which is not the evidence that was stolen. It was a strawberry cream pie. It was upsetting. This is the second case where Billy Joe Jive has overstepped his legal bounds and has subdued an innocent bystander in his quest for his delusional justice. I found it.
In Billy's defense, he gets the job done. By whatever means necessary.
I think he'd prefer if you called him Detective Joe Jive.
Alright, I'll keep that in mind for the future.
I suppose he did get the job done.
Job done.
He got the job done, but it was purely by happenstance, because he ran into a kid that was looking for his dog who happened to eat the cake. It was... I can't abide by it. It's no good. Thumbs down, Billy Joe. Sorry, maybe next time. The dog's name was Meatbone.
Meatbone.
That's a name for a dog. Then we had another good song, I think. What Do You Do When You're a Kangaroo? Which is just fun to say, first of all. I'm going to say it again. What do you do when you're a kangaroo? This is a bluesy, probably, it was the Kangaroo Blues. Just a bunch of, like, kangaroos. I like kangaroos. I think they're a very unique animal. Like, you can't really trace what they're... At least for me, I'm sure you could. Some genealogist could. But, like, they're very unique in what they do with their, like, pouch and the joeys and the whatnot. And the hopping.
The hopping looks cool.
Yeah, no, like, the way they fight by, like, jumping up and doing the kick.
Yeah, that takes some serious balance.
Yeah, they probably do a lot of squats.
Yeah.
Then we had a little game show segment, Beat the Time with Guy Smiley. This was a favorite. I enjoyed this one. It was reminiscent of the Grover waiter scene that we saw in the last episode with Jared. In this scene, Guy Smiley is the host of the game show, and the contestant is Cookie Monster. And Guy Smiley explains that he needs to find 3 things that rhyme with the word rain before the time runs out. So, what Cookie Monster does is he runs off behind the scenes, and the first thing he grabs is a cane, which, that's pretty unassuming. Hands it over to Guy Smiley. Guy Smiley's sort of like cheering on the crowd, when all of a sudden, this old man Muppet with like a top hat and like a mustache comes out onto the stage, clearly cranky that someone has stolen his cane. And maybe a bit of, I don't want to get too judgmental, but maybe not entirely there, because he seems a tad unaware that he's on a game show at first. He sort of has to be led through it by Guy Smiley, which is just one of my favorite things in general, when someone is completely unaware of the bizarre situation they've been put in.
Yeah, so tell me this. Please tell me Guy Smiley is a recurring character.
Oh, absolutely. He's a favorite.
He is my new favorite Muppet after watching this. Yeah. He was fantastic. He did a terrific job at entertaining me.
Yeah, he fills his role well, I would say. He gets a lot of the game show host style roles, and he does it well. But yeah, the cane is the first one. Then he returns with a chain. This is where things start to get a little bizarre. because the chain is connected to some sort of demon or Muppet monster. I thought it was very demonic. I don't know about you.
I thought it may have been Lucifer himself.
I would not put it past them, because the next thing that happens is Cookie Monster is panicking because he's only got a couple seconds left. So he runs off, and then we hear in the distance, in the far off distance, the sound of a train horn. And it's getting louder and it's getting louder, and Guy Smiley looks at the camera and he says, "What is that?" And then Cookie Monster bursts through the scene, destroying the set with a train. He's stolen it, it's come off the rails, and he wins the cookie, which was the grand prize. This is the second time that we've seen Cookie Monster conducting a train, which is bizarre. Like, there was another, like, full musical number in which Cookie Monster was the conductor of, like, a cookie train that you didn't see. But I think it's weird that Cookie Monster has... Maybe he's got a weird affinity for trains that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I hope this is not the last time we see him on a train.
He seems to fit.
Yeah, he pulls off the look.
Yeah, the little conductor hat, like the overalls.
Yeah.
It's a good deal. Good get up. Then we have... Okay, then we go back with Harry one last time. We wrap things up with Harry and Mr. Hooper in the cafe. Harry's still a little reluctant to put on the glasses. So this was a smart move by the writers, I think, because they got like a 2-for-1 deal with like children's lessons. They got the afraid to go to the doctor lesson, and they got the I feel silly with glasses on lesson. So, you know, a clever bit of sort of making it more complex, which was nice. But yeah, Mr. Gordon gives him the standard, you know, there's nothing to be afraid of. A bunch of adults wear glasses too. I wear glasses. So Harry puts them on, and he looks good. He's a glasses do well for him, I would say. You know?
Yeah.
But the first thing that Harry sees is that Mr. Hooper, he's losing his hair. He's going bald. And Harry makes sure to make note of that. And then we get a good, like, full 10 seconds of Mr. Hooper close up looking at the camera, looking all wah wah wah, just giving his best, really working the camera. I enjoyed that. Mr. Hooper is. I keep bouncing back and forth between my favorite human character. It might be Gordon. It might be Mr. Hooper. It's tough. Because his work in that ending little segment was a delight. Then we have another animated segment, the geese in G-Land, as I've called it. They sail across the water, paddling across. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about this? It's not very noteworthy to me.
Not really. No, just birds fine.
Yep, it's fine. We got our one last little sponsor thing. Or I guess G gets another thing. But the final noteworthy segment was Edith, the 5-year-old who made a sandwich. Okay, so we need to unpack this. I feel like there's a lot of ground to cover with this one. It's very problematic, to be frank. Edith, the 5-year-old, is not a 5-year-old. It is an adult. An adult who is wearing, like mock children's clothes, like a little like dress. I don't know what you call it for a little kid, but like clearly like 5-year-old clothes, and like got pigtails. But like it's clearly an adult, and they're sitting in like a giant oversized chair to emphasize that they're a kid. Not doing it for me, frankly. And this is another one, kind of like in a previous episode, the miming, the seed farmer miming episode, where it just seemed like they grabbed someone who had like graduated from an improv class, and like this was their final project, was a 5-year-old scene, because they're really working it as far as the 5-year-old takes. They're kind of like playing with their shoes absentmindedly, which you took great offense to.
Oh, I could not stand the constant, like scratching and rubbing and grabbing of the shoes. It was like, it's like nails to a chalkboard to me.
Yeah, so Edith is recounting to us this sandwich that she's made of just okay. It's just a bunch of gross ingredient combinations. It's the most simple of gross out writing that you can imagine. It's pickles and mustard and raisins and peanut butter and salami and cheese and all that stuff. And she's just listing off these different things that she put on her sandwich for like a good 2 minutes. I really don't know how this got greenlit. She fed it to her dog, and that's really the end, frankly. It was just a waste. I thought it was like it was uncomfortable, I think was the word I would use to describe it.
Yeah, it was. She tried to put everything back where she found it because the dog wouldn't even eat it. It was ugh.
Right. Yeah, it was. I don't want anything more like that. Stick with the Muppets or stick with adults being adults. Like, you've got plenty of kids. Just let the kids handle the kids.
Yeah.
All right, so then we have a quick one more G segment with a goat. Starts with G. A guy comes in with the letter G. I don't have much to say. He points at the grass instead of the goat, so it's kind of like, oh, you didn't expect it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I guess kids like that. I guess I liked it too. It's fine. But yeah, then we wrap up, bringing things full circle with Harry and Olivia. Harry explains that he's inspired by the Doctor and he wants to be an optometrist when he grows up. And so he shows us that his first patient is a little doll. He's working on the doll, which is bizarre because, like, who's to say what's real and what's not in the Sesame Street world? Why is a puppet okay and why is a doll not? I don't know. These questions don't have answers. So that's where we end it. Sponsors for that episode, GI and 11. Any closing thoughts, Cameron? How you feeling about Sesame Street at this point?
I'm feeling really good about it. I still enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed the first episode. And you mentioned your favorite human. Mm-hmm. I still think my favorite, after, I've seen Gordon and Mr. Hooper now. And I've seen some of the extras. Yeah. But I still like Gordon more after we saw Mr. Hooper in this episode. I still think that Gordon's performance talking about, like, animals, well, it was just, like, close up. Do you remember the turtle scene that they had?
Do, yeah.
And I think it was like a honey badger. And he was feeding the banana to it.
Yes.
I thought that was a lot of fun. And Mr. Hooper just wasn't able to top it for me. And then I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Do you think you've seen enough of Sesame Street to be able to start your own kids show?
Maybe. I feel like I've got the tone down at least, and I feel like with kids shows things can be a little more timeless,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like the difference between this Sesame Street and, like, modern Sesame Street really isn't all that different. Like, the production values are probably different, the topics are probably different, like, the cast and their approach. But, like, the very basic, like, structure and, like, how things sound and the rhythm of it, like, I feel like I've seen enough now to where if you were to tell me to make, like, a 15-minute collection of sketches, I feel like I could throw something together.
Yeah.
A collection of just, like, little drawings and simple, like, find, like, a theme or something that kids, like, relate to. Like the doctor scene, like the glasses, like, all that stuff.
Not enough to do 5 episodes a week for, like, 40 years?
Maybe not.
Not quite there yet?
We'll see. I feel like Sesame Street's got it covered,
Yeah.
Like, that market is saturated by 4,700 episodes of good old-fashioned Sesame Street. So, that was a lot of fun. I'm still enjoying it. They keep bringing enough new stuff in, like the disco, and like the different songs to keep it fresh and interesting for me. And Cameron, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself as well.
Yeah, it's been great being on.
Yeah, I hope we'll be hearing from you very soon. But for this week, this is Neighborhood Watch signing off. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next